Hi, welcome back to the Cuzzy Sound channel. Recently I've been playing around with circuits for effects pedals, and one effect that I've revisited is distortion, or fuzz if you want to call it that. Now the circuit I'm going to talk about today is based around a project in the Tone Fiend DIY Club series, so I'll put a link to the original article down below and you can go and check out that website. And it's a ridiculously simple circuit. The basics of the circuit is a transistor and a diode, and you could get away with just putting a resistor in there as well and a power supply, and you would get distortion. It wouldn't be very pretty, it would be pretty noisy, but it would be distortion. The thing about such a simple circuit is that you can modify it and tweak it fairly easily because of its simplicity, and shape the kind of sound that you yourself are looking for. Well, I did that and produced my True Grit distortion pedal. So my version of this is the thing about the gain. Let me rewind a little bit. The way you get the distortion depends on the transistor that you use, and there is a diode in the feedback, and you can choose different diodes, and that will shape the kind of distortion you're going to get. Now what I've done, I've chosen a transistor with a reasonably high gain, but when I breadboarded it up, I was playing around with different diodes to see what kind of sounds I could get out of it, and in the end I settled on including a switch which will allow me to select either a silicon diode or a germanium diode. And then in terms of the other controls, we have the gain control, which will affect the gain that you get out of the transistor circuit, and then a volume control, which basically just dials back the output if it's getting a bit too aggressive or whatever. There's not much else on there. I've included the ability to run it from a 9-volt power supply, like the same with any pedal power supply, but it does have a battery in there. The battery is automatically turned on when you plug something into the out socket. Essentially it's a stereo jack socket, but when you plug a mono plug in, the sleeve and the ring are joined together, and I simply loop the negative terminal of the battery through those two, so it automatically turns the battery on and off when you plug it in and out. And this of course has got it's a switch socket, so when you plug a mains power supply in, it disconnects the battery because you don't want to end up blowing up the battery. And I've included on the bypass switch, there's a link which when you switch it to the effect, the LED on the front will turn on. So let's have a look at the circuit that I ended up with. It's still a pretty simple circuit. So you can see there at the core you've got the transistor, and then I've got the two diodes, the silicon diode and the germanium diode, and the ability to switch between them. That gives me kind of a choice of the kind of fuzz one. The germanium diode gives a kind of a warmer, less kind of harsh fuzz, whereas the silicon is kind of nice and sharp and quite fizzy fuzz. Fizzy fuzz. Oh, I like that. That's a good term. And I did a strip board layout for it. So the strip board layout looks like this. Really simple. Very few components, actually quite small, so it fits nicely inside the pedal box. And when you look inside the pedal box, that looks like this. Bit of a tight squeeze, but it's all just in there in a nice, neat, compact pedal. What I will do is I will put the diagrams and any relevant photographs on the Cuzzy Sound Dropbox, and I'll put a link down below so you can go and download those. So that's the circuit. As I say, ridiculously simple circuit really, just one transistor and a diode to make it work. It's bonkers. But what does it sound like? Well, we'll go and plug some things into it and we'll have a listen to what we get out of it. We'll start with guitar, since it's supposed to be a guitar pedal. So I'm just going through the pedal into the mixer, no other effects applied or anything, and at the moment it's on bypass. So it's just straight guitar. I give myself on the headphones. Right, so I've got it switched to Germanium, I think, yep. And the gain's about halfway, so I turn the power on. And we start crank the gain up a bit. Starts to get really fat and juicy. Max it out. Very fat. Right, let's turn it to silicon. And I've turned the gain back down to about halfway again. Start to crank the gain up a bit. But as we bring it right up, it starts to really kind of max out on the silicon. Well, that's it with guitar. What I'm going to do next is I'll put the synth through it. See what that sounds like. What I've got here is a really simple patch setup to just do a very quick demo. So I've got a triangle wave output. I'm sending it through the synth mixer into the pedal. And then the CV on the triangle wave VCO is provided from a sample and hold module, just to give it a little bit of animation more than anything else, so that you can actually kind of hear some things going on. Let's turn up so that the pedal's switched to bypass at the moment. Bring the frequency So that's just the straight, clean signal. Right. So we got gain set halfway again, like we did with the guitar, and it's set to germanium diode. Lost a bit of volume there. Start to dial the distortion up. Increase the gain, it starts to add a nice little bit of fuzz into there, and a fizz, back to that fizzy fuzz again. I like that. I'm going to use that. Right, let's switch it to silicon. Start to dial some in. Now I've got quite a way up there and still not got a lot of that fizz coming in. As we get towards the top end, pretty much maxed out to achieve that on the silicon diode. But it does add that little bit of fizz to it. But I think in this application, I think the germanium one is a little bit. Let's try it with a slightly different. Put a soul wave through it. Sorry about that. So that's a clean soul wave signal. Switch in the distortion, and we're on the germanium diode. Germanium. Oh, it's so tempting, that, isn't it? Switch to silicon. I would say that with the soul wave, the silicon diode distortion actually adds a little bit more character than the germanium, whereas with the triangle wave, I thought it was the other way around. It sounded a little bit better. But hey, it's personal taste, and the thing about this circuit in here is that it's adaptable. You can tweak it to whatever you want. In fact, if you go and read the original Tone Fiend DIY Club article that I'll give the link to, in there he discusses the kind of tweaks that you can do using. There's a little bit of filtering at the front end of the circuit. I've gone for something that's a kind of a bit of a low pass filter, because I like the more bassy sounds of the distortion. But again, you can tweak with that and you can play around with all the various components. Such a simple circuit. But yeah, just a quick demo of some synth sounds and some guitar sounds. There you go. That's the True Grit distortion pedal. I've given you the circuit diagram, I've given you the strip board layout, there's pictures of how I put it together. So if you fancy building your own really simple but very effective distortion pedal, then yeah, go on, have a go, build your own. Incidentally, I don't have this pedal anymore. I gave it to my son as a fun wrap at Christmas. But watch this space, there will be another version of this, slightly simplified, in the Little Boxes series. So do check that out, come back and have a look at how I put it into a little box.